Well, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So I see that it is 2:04. And Kelly, because we don't have quorum yet, we can't actually call the meeting to order. Is that correct? Perfect. So as I'm recalling my Robert's Rules of Orders, as you can tell, I'm Jason Matthews, and I'm not our board chair, Jacqueline Edwards. She is running a little bit late. Will be joining us a little bit later, but she asked for me to get started here in my role and as the vice chair. But welcome and thank you so much for attending the MAG Human Services Technical Committee agenda committee. This is the agenda. So my apologies. I'm totally reading a script. With that, since we don't have our quorum yet, we can't really call the meeting to order, but we can go ahead and get started. And let's see, since we can't do the call order and call the audience, since we're not quite there yet either, can we go into maybe some presentations? Would that be okay? Perfect. So with that, I'm going to jump down to agenda item number 4, which is our economic assessment on heat presentation. And in fact, thank you so much. It's great to see Anna Bettis. She's with the Nature Conservancy in Arizona with a nice little wave. And she has a presentation that she will be sharing with us. And she's going to be here to present regarding the economic assessment of heat in the Phoenix metro area. And so we'll go ahead and continue with this. As soon as we have the quorum, we may pause kind of after the presentation, maybe for questions, maybe kind of get the meeting started and kind of everything, but we'll just go ahead and start with the presentation. So with that, Anna, take it away.
Okay, thanks. And actually, I think there's one slide first before we get to this one. So if you could just go back one, whoever is so graciously helping with that. Thank you. Wonderful. Well, yeah, then let me know when or if you need me to pause. Hi, everybody. I'm Anna Bettis. I am the Healthy Cities Program Manager for the Nature Conservancy in Arizona. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope that the information that I'll share will be useful to you in your work. I joined the Nature Conservancy about 2.5 years ago, and my background's primarily in sustainability. Been working in the Valley in that space for about a decade, some in academia and some philanthropy, worked at a municipal level. I have my master's in sustainability solutions, so really excited to be here at the Nature Conservancy. And before I get into the study itself, I'll say just a few words about the Nature Conservancy for those of you who may not be familiar with us or our work in cities. A lot of people know TNC as a conservation organization, and historically much of our work has focused on protecting pristine areas. We are the largest conservation organization in the world, operating in all 50 states and 72 countries. Our Healthy Cities program, which is where this economic assessment falls in our work, started about 6 years ago. So this is a relatively new but important area of work for us. We really recognized that, the world is rapidly urbanizing, that, already 80% of the population lives in cities in the US, and a lot of our most critical challenges are in cities. So we're looking at how to try to address some of those challenges by actually bringing nature into cities. And our work in cities looks different depending on the local context, but certainly here in Phoenix, a big focus has been extreme heat. If you can go to the next slide. So I'll talk just for a moment about the issue of heat. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here. There's probably many experts in the room on heat, but we'll talk about it just for a moment. As you may know, heat is the leading weather-related cause of death in the US, and the highest rates nationally are found in Arizona. The Phoenix metro area is the hottest large metro area in the US, and so we're really looking at how we can lead the way on addressing this challenge with our partners. And we know that the impacts of climate change will worsen the challenges that we're facing with heat in the region, but already it's having major consequences. For example, in 2021, there were 338 heat deaths in Maricopa County alone, according to the latest numbers I saw from Maricopa County Department of Public Health. But heat is different than other natural disasters because you don't necessarily see it when you look out the window. It can be kind of invisible in that way. But yet it's this slow moving and persistent threat that we're facing. Go to the next slide. Thank you. So while heat affects everyone, it does not affect everyone in quite the same way. As you can see on these maps of the Phoenix metro area, the hottest places also have the lowest tree canopy cover and the highest child poverty. I know they're quite small, but I like to show them side by side so you can really see the trends here. There's, I'm using my mouse like you can see it. The dark red areas on the left are the areas that are the hottest. There's kind of an L-shaped down Glendale and South Phoenix. And if you track those same areas, you can see that they also have low tree canopy cover, which is marked in light green, and higher child poverty marked in dark blue. And just to drive the equity point home further, we know that there are neighborhoods that are as little as 2 miles apart in Phoenix that can have as much as a 13-degree difference in air temperature, which we all know could be, really significant. If we can go to the next slide. So the good news is when we talk about heat and disparities that, there's things that we can do to reduce heat. So this project, the economic assessment of heat in the Phoenix metro area, we started about a year ago to better understand the extent of the impact in monetary terms of urban heat, as well as the costs and benefits of some solutions, and also to make the economic case to incorporate and invest in the use of solutions for addressing this issue. And so our goal with this assessment is really, we'd like to mobilize people from the government, private sector, and communities, and make them aware that, number one, there is this problem. Number two, there's things that can be done. And number three, if we do not do something, there will be consequences. So just a few details about how we approach the project. If you can go to the next slide. We contracted with AECOM to carry out the assessment, and then we also convened an advisory committee. And this was comprised of some key stakeholders and leaders in our community. And those individuals played a critical role in steering this effort and also identified existing data and data sources and reviewed the findings. So just want to say none of this would have been possible without their guidance, their time, and their commitment to the project. So really fortunate to have had that. You can go ahead. I think it's actually a couple slides ahead here. There's the names of the members if you'd like to see that. I think the slides were shared with you. You can keep going. And again, and actually one more, sorry, I said some of my stuff a little early, thank you. Okay, study overview. So our study followed 3 key steps. The first was to conduct a conditions analysis to understand how temperature would change in the Phoenix metro area in the future. We looked at what the cost would be to the Phoenix metro area if no action is taken to address these warming temperatures. We looked at 2 future time horizons, 2030 and 2050. And then lastly, what can we do about this? So what solutions are out there and what are their cost effectiveness? And our full technical report is available on the Healthy Cities webpage, which has all the supporting details and methodologies. And that link should also have been shared with you. If not, I'm happy to pop it in the chat. But for now, I'll just be giving you a high level overview of some of the findings on the next few slides. You can go to the next slide. So before we dig into the findings, it's important to just get an understanding of the underlying key concepts that the study is based on. Most of the economic methodologies that we applied use a baseline climate or typical climate conditions as a reference point to understand how the impacts of heat will change with time. And these baseline conditions are dependent on the period between 1986 and 2005. And then we looked at 2 future time horizons to understand how higher temperatures will affect the economy. Also a note here that these numbers provide a snapshot of the cost of an average year, not an extreme or atypical year. And also we're presenting those 2 emission scenarios, one in which emissions are reduced and then another higher emission scenario. And lastly, the report does not project economic conditions or changes in population. We're basing it off of current conditions. But that said, we do have a section where we look at how demographics will change in the region. And I'll touch on that briefly right now. So with that, let's dig into the conditions assessment. If you can go to the next slide. And one more. Thank you. So Maricopa County has grown dramatically in the last few decades, and going forward, this growth is projected to continue. The county is expected to grow to 6.2 million by 2050, which is a growth rate of more than double that of the average US population growth over that same period. And in addition, if you look to the right on the slide here, you can see that the population is expected to age. So between 2020 and 2050, the share of Maricopa County population over 65 is expected to increase from 15 to 23% in 2050. And that means that the ratio of Maricopa County working age population to non-working population is going to decrease, which will require municipalities to fund increasing infrastructure, climate adaptation, and social service costs from a smaller relative base of market income. And so this is really the backdrop for that warming climate. I'm going to go to the next slide. Thank you. Looking into the future, we found that the average number of days over 110 degrees are anticipated to be between 3 to 5 times what they are now in 2030 and 2050. And also overall, the annual mean temperatures are also expected to increase with an average of 2.5 degrees Fahrenheit and 4.9 degrees Fahrenheit relative to baseline conditions. Go to the next slide. And so what does this mean in terms of cost to society if we do not take any action to mitigate this warming? Go to the next one here, thanks. The decision of what to cost out for the study was based on a process that was guided by the input of the advisory committee that I mentioned earlier, and was also based on relevance to the region, data availability, and feasibility for evaluation. And where we landed was these 4 categories: health, labor productivity, roadway infrastructure, and electricity demand. Go to the next slide. Okay, for health, we looked at mortality and morbidity. The former evaluates heat-related deaths that are either directly heat-related or deaths triggered by extreme heat, while morbidity captures non-life-threatening health impacts that require medical attention. And these impacts are either directly heat-related or triggered by extreme heat as well. And we look specifically at emergency department visits and inpatient hospitalizations. And in addition to health impacts and loss of life, heat-related mortality and morbidity create a number of costs to society. These include the direct cost of patients and the cost of providing care. These also include the indirect losses in the form of productivity loss. Go to the next slide. So in a baseline year, we estimated heat-related mortality impacts at $1.3 billion. Under future conditions in an average year around 2030, that could increase by $846 million. And around 2050, that could increase by $1.5 billion. Go to the next slide. For morbidity impacts for emergency department visits, we costed the cost to patients. In a baseline year, cost to patients are estimated at $2 million. In the future, that annual cost could rise by $700,000 in 2030 and $1.2 million in 2050. Go to the next slide. And then the last health impact we costed was inpatient hospitalizations, where we looked at the cost to patients. And in an average baseline year, these are estimated at $5.3 million. In the future, the annual cost in an average year could rise by $2.6 million in 2030 and $4.7 million in 2050. Go to the next slide. For labor productivity, extreme heat can pose additional direct costs to businesses in the form of declining labor productivity. We specifically looked at how exposure to high heat can result in loss to gross regional product, or GRP. GRP is a measure similar to GDP, gross domestic product, and it's a metric that measures the size of a region's economy. The GRP for Maricopa County is just over $260 billion. And there are certain jobs that are more at risk to losses in labor productivity, and so we were able to look specifically at these high-risk jobs. Go to the next slide. In Maricopa County, about 20% of jobs are classified as high risk in terms of their exposure to heat and the impact that that has on their productivity. Go to the next slide. And you'll have all these slides. I know I'm covering a lot. And so the results for labor productivity, we found that in a future year in 2030, the loss to GRP could be around $731 million. And in 2050, the loss to GRP could be around $1.2 billion, which is equivalent to about 0.4% of Maricopa County's GRP. Next slide. Our next economic indicator is the cost of roadway infrastructure. Roadways are especially vulnerable to the impacts of extreme heat, and these vulnerabilities are exacerbated by traffic volumes, which are likely going to increase as the local population grows. And longer periods of extreme heat are expected to compromise pavement integrity by softening the asphalt and increasing pavement deformation or rutting from traffic use. And gradually, these impacts can become more significant over the roadway's 20 to 30-year life cycle, leading to more maintenance needs. Go to the next slide. By 2030, roadway maintenance costs could increase in Maricopa County by $640,000 per year, and more substantially by $7.6 million per year by 2050. And an important note, our analysis estimated the impact of increasing temperatures on the total roadway life cycle cost, which is the cost to maintain roadways during their 20 to 30 years of expected useful life. And the numbers represented here are an average year within that life cycle. Go to the next slide, please. So our last economic indicator is electricity demand. Between now and 2050, climate-driven increases in ambient temperature are expected to increase demand for electrical use. Go to the next slide. Maricopa County can expect summer energy costs to increase by $64 for residential customers and $206 for commercial customers once the average summer temperatures increase by 1 degree Fahrenheit. And an important note, the $64 and $206 increase is over the entire summer period, which we are counting as May through October for the study. And the study estimates that the average summer temperatures will increase by 1 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit by 2030 and up to 3 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit by 2050, which suggests that there is a potential for average summer electricity bills to increase even more than is stated here if the local electricity providers do not adapt and expand their capacity and pricing to adapt to changing conditions. Okay, next slide. So stepping back, when we look at each of these cost categories collectively, we estimate that the projected temperature increases could cost the Phoenix metro area up to $1.9 billion in the low emission scenario in a typical year by 2050. And if emissions are not curbed in the coming decades, then this number could climb to up to $2.3 billion by 2050. Next slide. So $2.3 billion in annual cost is not a small sum of money for any area. And so what actions can we take now to mitigate the impacts of heat? We can go to the next slide. There's certainly a lot that can be done to manage and mitigate heat, many of which are listed here on the slide, but our study focused on just 2 of those. You can go to the next slide again. For the purpose of this study, the project team and the advisory committee decided to focus our analysis on the economic benefits of cool roofs and urban tree canopy. Specifically, we analyzed the costs and benefits of deploying cool roofs on 100% of Phoenix metro area buildings. This would be only when they needed to be replaced anyway. And then increasing the urban tree canopy to 25%. And as I mentioned earlier, we selected these 2 solutions for a few reasons. So 1, across the board, researchers agree that these solutions provide heat mitigation benefits. 2, these benefits intersect with the costed metrics that I showed in the first part of the presentation. And then 3, there was existing research and data on these solutions that was based on the Phoenix metro area. So we had that very high quality local data. You can go to the next slide. So in order to quantify the benefits of cool roofs and urban tree canopy, we first had to understand the specific benefits of each and how those benefits intersect with the economic indicators we costed. And the primary benefit of both solutions that we looked at is that they have a cooling impact on temperature. This global cooling effect, as we call it, has a direct relationship with each of those economic indicators. And then another benefit, which is very similar to the global cooling effect, but we call it site-specific benefit, is that the shade from trees and reflection from cool roofs reduces the demand for electricity by reducing the need for internal air conditioning. Okay, if you can go to the next. I just want to call out here that there's a lot of other benefits to these 2 solutions that we did not look at, but we're focusing our research just on the economic indicators that we costed. So just want to highlight, it's probably a conservative number even when we're talking benefits. Go to the next slide, only a few left. So cool roofs have the potential to reduce near surface temperature and reduce energy demand for interior cooling by reflecting sunlight and thus absorbing less heat. Next slide. So if the Phoenix metro area were to deploy cool roofs on 100% of its buildings, we found that there would be $8 billion in avoided damages. Meanwhile, deploying cool roofs on buildings would only cost the Phoenix metro area $1.5 billion. And so this means that cool roof benefits outweigh the cost by 5.2. You can go to the next slide, please. Urban trees and urban tree canopy provide shade and transparent water, which has the effect of reducing urban surface and air temperature and thus improving thermal comfort and reducing energy demand for interior cooling. And we estimated that the impact of increasing the Phoenix metro area's tree canopy to 25% would lead to avoided heat-related damages valued at over $15 billion. Oh, I'm sorry, next slide. Meanwhile, reaching 25% tree canopy would cost the Phoenix metro area just $4 billion, which means that the urban tree canopy benefits outweigh the cost by 3.8. Next slide. So really the scope of this study was just answering those questions that I talked about around what is the cost if we don't take action and what are the costs and benefits of some solutions. But would love to think more with people in the room, a virtual room here, of kind of where to go from here. And hopefully this information is helpful to others. I don't know what the rules are, if we can open it up for questions, but that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciate that. And it's a great presentation. And yes, I can't wait to share and talk about this with friends and colleagues. So again, just as a reminder for folks, while we don't officially have the meeting adjourned because we start missing just one more person for quorum, we can absolutely take some questions from the committee members to Anna on this wonderful presentation. And just, even though we're not taking notes, if you just kind of still make sure that you are saying your name, just so we can capture that, because also just a nice little practice as well. So any questions for Anna? Yes, Melanie?
So Anna, I thought I remembered that Phoenix was doing some kind of testing. Was it a pavement test that they were doing in terms of cool pavement? Do you know whatever ended up with that experiment that they had?
Yeah, I believe they actually just won an award for that with the Arizona Forward Environmental Excellence Awards. So that is different than cool roofs, obviously, but it's basically something that goes on the pavement that reflects heat. The reason, so there is definitely urban heat island benefits of having cool pavements. That's what their pilot study has shown. There's trade-offs with that. So one of the things that they've found is that during the hottest parts of the day, which, maybe people aren't out walking, people might be in school or work, but during the hottest parts of the day, the heat is reflecting back up. So the feeling that the human body would get in the hot part of the day would actually be a little bit hotter. But then at nighttime, you don't have that heat, re-radiating back out, which is, the main issue with the urban heat island effect. So there's definitely benefits. You might need to think about, where are the places that it would make sense that maybe there aren't a lot of, people actually walking around next to it. And that was one of the reasons that we went with cool roofs for the study as opposed to cool pavements. Just because of those trade-offs, we thought, okay, cool roofs, there's no one walking up there, so you can reflect that, heat back up, and you don't have that same issue. So yeah, it's really exciting that they're looking into those solutions, because there is so much of our cities is pavement, but there is, like everything, right? There's trade-offs.
And I will say, Gilbert actually just implemented and adopted a shade and streetscape master plan. And so we're actually going for 30% coverage, but they're looking at schools for 30%, but parks need to be 60% with trees, parking lot 60%. But, overarchingly, the goal is to actually get to, all the streetscapes, at least 30% to be pedestrian friendly. So we've actually done a full inventory of all the trees in our public right of way. So we know where all our trees are and what we have. But that is something that Gilbert has just actually started to implement as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Is that somewhere? Can I find that online somewhere? Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful.
I'll put our link in the chat if you want to end up seeing kind of the website that has it, and then you can access the report from there.
And Melanie, I don't know if we can do the link in the chat, but I see Kelly, but I think that we can try to find some other ways to share that.
I will go, I'm sure I can Google it. Yeah. I will find it. Yes. I like to know what cities are doing things, because, sometimes people ask when I'm doing presentations, well, how many cities actually have, tree canopy goals or plans, so it's really great to hear that. And yeah, good question.
Yeah. Melanie, if you do send me that link, I can send it out to the entire committee as well.
Okay, will do.
And Mary Lynn, I see you have a question.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make a comment as I especially support the tree canopy. I live in downtown Phoenix, or in a historic district, and my whole backyard is almost nothing but trees. And it's usually 10 to 15 degrees cooler in the backyard than it is. And my house is cooler too. And I think we ought to encourage it residentially, that people, use a lot of trees to help control the heat in their homes, which would mean you use a lot less electricity.
Great. Thank you, Mary Lynn. Okay. Any other questions for Anna?
Can I respond, Jason?
Yeah, of course.
I was just going to say, Mary Lynn, one exciting thing you talked about residential. APS has just started their philanthropy side, targeted tree and shade kind of small grants program that's supposed to be in areas that are disproportionately affected by urban heat. So it's exciting to see some of the developments here around that. Certainly, there's such a mix of property types. So when you're talking about increasing tree canopy cover, like it's going to be right residents, cities, private sector, like it's going to take a lot of different actors coming together. So just wanted to echo what you said. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Anna. Any other questions for Anna on her presentation? And we actually, looks like we just have quorum, so we will call the meeting order in a second, but any other questions for Anna? All right, hearing none. Anna, thank you so much for sharing this wonderful presentation. It's important information, and I know that we all have, I know we can use this information in our daily lives. So thank you for being a resource for us.
Yes, thank you. And TNC is always looking to, partner. That's kind of our approach in all the work that we do. So you'll see that as a staple all throughout. So hopefully it'll keep us in mind, and in the future, nice to meet and see, well, should I stay for the meeting or should I go?
Entirely up to you, Anna. We really appreciate you being here, and we will be sharing your report as well with the membership.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you again for the opportunity to speak. Well, I'll stay and listen in. I'll turn off my camera, but I'll stay.
Perfect. Always welcome. Well, great. Well, let's go ahead and let's go back up to the top of our agenda. Now that we have quorum, thank you all very much for being here. We really appreciate that. So yeah, let's go ahead and welcome to the Human Services Technical Committee meeting. I am our Vice Chair, Jason Matthews, covering for Jacqueline Edwards. And let's call the meeting to order. It is 2:31 p.m. For the MAG Human Services Technical Committee. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube as a way for members of the public to participate. Please make sure that if you are not chatting, make sure you have your microphones on mute so don't have any other background noises. And then for the purpose of the meeting minutes, please make sure that you state your name before any comments. So that's just make sure that we can capture your name as always. So, and also, just a reminder for action items, we'll be taking a roll call vote, and we'll ask staff to call out the council names and then ask how you vote. We will begin the meeting with a roll call of attendance. Kelly Williams with MAG will now call a roll call.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Yes.
Renee Ayers Benavides.
Present.
Melanie Dykstra.
Present.
Chair Jacqueline Edwards. Naomi Farrell. Autumn Grooms. Edith Baltieres on behalf of Jerry Guajardo.
Present.
Laura Guild. Susan Hallett.
Present.
Mary Lynn Kasanick.
Present.
Vice Chair Jason Matthews.
Present.
Christina Panatescu. And Leah Powell.
This is Karen Bishop, proxy for Leah Powell at this time.
Thank you, Karen. You have quorum, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. And unless there's any other questions, we'll move on to the next item. There being none, perfect. Agenda item number 2 is a call to the audience. Please note that members of the public were given an opportunity to submit written comments related to this meeting on azmag.gov/comment within 1 hour of the posted start time for the meeting. Kelly, has staff received any comments from the public?
We have not, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll close that agenda item and we'll go on to agenda item number 3, the approval of the February 10th, 2022 minutes. Item 3 is approval of meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll approve.
Mary Lynn, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Melanie is a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Please indicate your vote with a yay, nay, or abstention. Kelly, please conduct the roll call vote.
Renee Ayers Benavides.
Yay.
Melanie Dykstra.
Aye.
Edith Baltieres on behalf of Jerry Guajardo.
Aye.
Susan Hallett.
Aye.
Mary Lynn Kasanik.
Aye.
Karen Bishop on behalf of Leah Powell.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Jason Matthews.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. And so that closes out agenda item number 3. We did have a presentation already from our guest. Thank you so much, Anna. Hopefully you're ready to do the presentation again. I am just joking. Thank you so much. And so that was a wonderful presentation, and we'll make sure that a copy of that is sent out to all the members, as it was quite rewarding. And thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to go on to agenda item number 5, which ironically is my agenda item as well. So just teeing myself up for myself. So, this is the Project Connect overview, and really I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to talk about Project Connect and share some of the changes that have been implemented with the program, kind of bring everyone up to speed, and then share maybe some potential opportunities that could be present for your community and beyond for this particular program. So before I begin, I just want to get like either a quick show of hands. Who here has not heard of Project Connect? Great. This will be a very fast conversation. Very good. So with that, that's great. It's been around for a very long time. I actually, as I was reflecting and looking at this preparation for this presentation, I think one of my very first jobs in human services, when I was over at the city of Tempe back in like 2003 or 2004 or something like that, was actually setting up one of our first Project Connects in downtown Tempe. Back then we had one like once a month in downtown Tempe, which was, I think that's why I had an internship, was just to help with Project Connect and to move things around from point A to point B. I think that's why management interns exist, is just to do those kinds of activities amongst other fun things. But it was a wonderful opportunity. At the time, it was actually brought over from California, from Salinas, California, actually, with farm workers and other folks that were just kind of like there kind of seasonally. And from there, has really grown. It has continued to grow with the help of organizations such as the Valley Sun United Way, which took it across Maricopa County. And now I've also seen other communities, namely the city of Peoria has something that's very similar to a Project Connect that is also in the community. Same kind of like a one-day, one-stop day of resources that are centralized around one particular location. In many cases, they are, say, houses of worship, or maybe a public building or some other kind of partnership like that, maybe a nonprofit. And then a bunch of resources are just located in one site. So those that are experiencing homelessness or on the verge of experiencing homelessness can go to that one stop and be able to get linked with a bunch of different resources within that day. In addition, it's also an opportunity for a lot of community volunteers to come and work with not only the agencies, but also serve as guest guides that really just, they're partnered up with someone that is there for the day to receive services. And there's a little bit of a kind of an intake kind of process that happens, and a little bit of kind of a coordination of like, what do you need today? And then they literally just go together and just kind of get escorted around. So there's a warm kind of a hand that's really helping them get access to services. It is a rewarding experience. As going to so many different Project Connects, in my experience, I often tell new volunteers that after that day, they will never unsee homelessness ever again, as it is just something to where you just hear the stories, you see the people, you understand what conditions kind of helped get to them to that day. And then you also see as they actually get access to resources and get connected to resources. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. So that's kind of a little bit overview. I think you've all seen it. It's wonderful. The one big change that has now happened for Project Connect is that the Valley Sun United Way is now partnering with the Human Services Campus downtown to be the administrator of that project. And what's exciting about that is that in the past, and this is still the case today, one of the biggest requests for services for individuals and from guests that are attending a Project Connect is housing. And there's just never enough, quite frankly. If there was some, maybe it'd be like maybe 1 or 2, spots available. It was never enough. By partnering with the Human Services Campus, getting them linked into the system, and whether that's getting them into coordinated entry, getting them assessed through HMIS and all those wonderful tools that already exist, it just gets them more efficiently and effectively put into the system. And so we partner with them not only to administer it, but it's also to help enhance the level of service delivery as well, which I just think is a win-win-win. That's still rotating around the community. I'm actually looking at some numbers from the last one that happened last month. It was actually in the city of Surprise, where 95 individuals were served in Surprise, which is amazing. And in that, most of the folks that were served were from that community, but there was also 20 folks from Phoenix that were served. 11 individuals from El Mirage were served. It was just really mostly the northwest part of the valley, which makes sense. But it was just a wonderful way to just get those linkages there. What's great is that we also, during these kind of processes, it's not just tracking the number of individuals that are being served, but also the number of service connections that are made in that day. And in that day with those 95 individuals, just over 300 service connections were made in that day, which is fantastic. It's just reflective of all of the incredible resources that were listed there. And looking at our list, 42 guests is the one that got the most. 42 guests were connected to DES services, which is great. And just to give just one little example, DES, they actually set up a little shop that day to get people immediately connected with services. So if you can make it there, not only can you get a nice warm meal, not only can you get connected with maybe some clothes and some other kinds of services, even for some pets and things like that, but you can also get connected with DES benefits that day, which is just amazing. So, and also other things like over 30 showers were taken. There's a mobile shower unit. It's all these wonderful things. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. One opportunity, and one of the reasons why we want to talk about this today, is not only to say it's up and it's round, it's amazing. The next one will be in May in Mesa, actually downtown Mesa very specifically. We would love to try to get more communities interested in hosting Project Connects into the future. Right now, there's a kind of a cadence of just about every other month, or kind of a target of like 5 to 7 throughout the year, depending on funding and all that great opportunities. But if you're interested in hosting a Project Connect event, just either let myself know. I will make sure that the meeting notes reflect also some contacts with the Human Services campus. But that's a wonderful opportunity just to try to get this across the county and really to have those communities that just want to raise their hand and say, yes, we love to have one. Sometimes that's the biggest barrier, quite frankly. Oftentimes we get the same communities that are always saying yes, and we don't really kind of get that rotation across our very vast Maricopa County size. So if you know of anyone, please let me know. With that, if there's any questions on the Project Connect that folks would like to have, I'd like to entertain some. I see Melanie and I also see Mary Lynn. I think Mary Lynn, you were first and then Melanie.
Just a question, is it only for homeless or is it for anybody that's needy in that community?
Very good question, Mary Lynn. And it's actually, it depends upon the design for that community. More times than not, the two primary populations are those that are currently experiencing homelessness and those that are just on the verge of experiencing homelessness as well. So in that space, it's mostly single individuals, but we also have seen families as well that show up. It's a much smaller population, but those are individuals that show up too. And again, it's just, those are the kind of services that are typically there.
Yeah, and the area agency probably could participate in, the various ones at the various cities. Some of the things that we offer, of course, are maybe to sign people up for meals, to help them with Medicare, Medicaid issues. Our senior helpline, can put people, in connection with services for older adults. So if people want to let me know, I'll see if we have someone available to kind of join those activities.
Mary Lynn, I'll make sure to make that connection. And yeah, I will follow up with you directly. I think that's going to be really special. So thank you so much. Melanie, you had your hand up?
If you were to host, like what kind of space or do you need in order to do that? Like what are you looking for from the host city? Yeah.
Perfect question. Usually a gymnasium, just be honest, it's just a really big space. As we get into our hotter months, one that's air conditioned is also very key. When it's cooler, we actually have had them kind of an open air kind of environment where there's kind of some pop-up tents. It kind of almost looks like an art fair in some kind of ways. But basically even the one that we had in March, in Surprise, it was inside a Salvation Army that was in Surprise. And depending upon the community and where it's located at, and the transportation options that are available to folks will really kind of determine how big the community or how big the space will need to be. So for example, the one that's going to be in Mesa next month, it's going to be very close to light rail. It's going to be very close to regional bus routes. It's going to be a very big site. And I believe they're going to use the Intra-Stake Center, which is a very big facility in downtown Mesa that has not just the parking for volunteers and for staff, but also just a lot of access routes. That's all, for the most part, air conditioned. Any other questions on Project Connect?
This is Edith Altiers with the City of Avondale. Do you guys provide financial support for any of the costs that might come up, or is this all part of what the city or communities commit to?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that if I understand your question correctly, really, when a community says yes, everything's basically provided. It's really, especially probably our biggest need is always that in-kind space that is air conditioned. That is That's one thing that we really are looking for that partner to provide. But after that, that organization, or sometimes the organizations say yes to that, then everything else is brought in. Everything from the food to water to the tables, the chairs, all of those different things. We've gotten it down to kind of a science. We're almost like the best event planners in the business right now. So we really try to be really efficient. We have amazing volunteers with that, but really that in-kind site that is big enough, like that gymnasium that's air conditioned, that is really a big barrier. But once that is, there's a yes there, basically the community just has to open up the doors and we can just go ahead and go from there. And that also includes a lot of the outreach that's also done. Outreach, we have some partners that do street outreach. That outreach usually begins about 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time, and just making sure that those individuals that are experiencing homelessness and maybe just a lot of the same folks like participate in the point in time count, for example. So they kind of know all the different places where folks have congregated beforehand in that particular side of Maricopa County and the community. And they do outreach and just make sure to advertise that site and get folks there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, again, just to close out this agenda item, if anyone would like to raise their hand or has some more questions, Mary Lynn, I'll make sure to follow up with you really directly on that wonderful offer for AAA. But if anyone's curious to learn more, just reach out and I will, and people know how to get a hold of me now and in the future. So it's very easy to find me. So, and with that, Madam Chair, I do see you're here. Would you like to take over? I'll give you first right of refusal if you would like to take over the meeting, or I can go ahead and start. That is up to you.
I'll take it off your hands. Thank you for doing so for so long, and apologize everyone for being late. I had another meeting I couldn't miss. So nice to see everyone today, and thank you so much, Jason, for taking the helm for the first hour there. So, and thanks for the information on Project Connect. Really appreciate that. I think even those of us who've heard about it before, it's nice to have the reminder, and then how we can engage if we so do desire in the future. So on to number 6, an overview of the MAG Human Services Division. And so this is next on our agenda, and Kelly is going to review the division's mission. So thanks so much, Kelly. Off to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. At the request of Madam Chair and Vice Chair, we were asked today to briefly review the different activities and missions of the MAG Human Service Division. Next slide, please. The Human Service Division focuses on several specific areas. Primarily, we focus on preventing homelessness, domestic violence, and improving access to transportation for individuals in our community who are deemed vulnerable. They may have a physical disability, they may be senior, they may just not have other ready access to transportation in their community. And through that, to meet these missions, we staff several committees out of our division, including your own, the Human Services Technical Committee, the Human Services Community Initiatives Committee, the Continuum of Care Board, which really focuses on homelessness and the federal HUD dollars that come into our region, our Regional Domestic Violence Council, and Elderly and Persons with Disabilities Transportation Committee. Next slide, please. I wanted to give you an overview of our team. We have had some recent turnover and some great new faces on our team. We have Nikki Stevens, who is our homeless program manager. She has several homeless planners who report up to her, including Katie Gentry, Haley Owens. We have another homeless planner beginning on Monday. Her name is Cleo Warner. And our Didi Getsia leads our transportation division, and Hezekiah Roca reports up to her. And we, on this call, which I'm very happy to introduce, we have a new administrative assistant, Dylan Belmont, who just joined our team a couple weeks ago, and he's doing a fantastic job already. So we're so happy to have his help. If you receive an email from Dylan, now you have a face to match with the email, and we look forward to hosting you all back at the MAG offices sooner than later and getting to meet you and allowing you to meet him in person as well. Next slide, please. So what does our continuum of care work look like when it comes to bringing in federal dollars from HUD? There's more than $500 million of program funding that comes into the region annually. And really, this is a system set up at the federal level to try to make sure that all the homeless providers are communicating, that the priorities are agreed upon for the region, and that policy decisions are being made across, including all voices, including individuals with lived experience. And MAG operates as the applicant for those funds, and we also act as the planning entity, just as we do in many other areas. Next slide, please. Of our work with these HUD dollars and with our homeless dollars, you may be familiar with our point in time count. It happens annually. It typically happens on a Tuesday in January. We have a specific set of dates we can select from as determined by HUD. The 2020 PIT count showed that we had 7,419 individuals experiencing homelessness. We just conducted our homeless PIT count again this January. In 2021, it was postponed due to COVID. And in that 2-year time period, we saw a 35% increase in homelessness across the region. It's pretty dramatic. I'm sure that all of you are also experiencing or hearing about this increase in your work as well. This number reflects both the sheltered and unsheltered individuals who are experiencing homelessness on that night. And while the PIT count is an eye-opening experience, if you've ever had the opportunity to go out and do the count, it also provides some specific data. What we always want to provide in addition with this data is the caveat that it really is just a snapshot of what we saw that one day by volunteers going out across the region to count individuals. We have lots of other data points that we also use in our decision making when it comes to the needs across our region. Next slide, please. So it has been rising for the last 4 years. As you will see, the growth rate between 2019 and 2020 was 12% just from the PIT count, with a pretty remarkable increase of 18% in unsheltered and 7% in sheltered. As I mentioned, the 2022 data shows a 35% increase from 2020, which the 35%, of course, is a dramatically big number, and I'm not in any way trying to downplay it, but as you can see here, we were seeing on average about an 18% increase annually, so the 35% for 2 years was not unexpected, although still it very specifically defines our work and tells us that we have a lot more to do in this area. Next slide, please. Our Regional Domestic Violence Council really focuses on bringing together individuals who both work in domestic violence prevention, including first responders, individuals, for example, Mary Lynn Kasanick's, the DOVES program through the Area Agency on Aging is one of our great partners, the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, et cetera. Individuals and stakeholders come together every other month to talk about strategies on how we can further decrease domestic violence of all forms across our region. This last year, we had a special focus on trying to reduce domestic violence among our older population, recognizing that some 5 million individuals 65 and older this year will experience some form of domestic violence, and oftentimes that's at the hand of their caregivers and their family. Next slide, please. So we work with partners at the Department of Economic Security, Laura Guild, who's a member of this committee as well, on an aging abuse grant to try to specifically identify ways that we can work with community stakeholders to help them determine when older adults may be experiencing some form of domestic violence, including economic, emotional, et cetera, and providing training to law enforcement, a resource guide. The grant is pretty large, and it's really exciting to see all of the work that's coming out of it. We have additional stakeholders being added daily to the listserv and to the monthly calls to really identify ways that we can work better together to try to help protect older adults. Our domestic violence work is not specific to older adults, but that has been a focus for the last year. October, as you may remember, is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. MAG hosts a press conference at the beginning of the month, and we also lean on you and our other community stakeholders to help us develop a robust calendar of events in October. As many of you honor October as Domestic Violence Prevention Month. Next slide, please. We also have 2 staff members dedicated specifically to trying to improve transportation options for older and individuals with disabilities across the region. This includes the application and receipt of federal 5310 transportation dollars, coordination of mobility management, the Transportation Ambassador Program, Connect a Ride, and other programs. One thing that I wanted to bring up when showing you this slide is one of the significant challenges that our transportation team has had in the last year and a half, which again, I would imagine that you've all heard about, both reading in the news and perhaps even in your own communities, is a supply chain issue. There are only so many manufacturers of vehicles that are specifically outrigged, for lack of a better term, for individuals who may need a wheelchair or other accommodations. And those supply chain issues are really significant in the transportation industry at the moment. And furthermore, we've had a really terrible rash of catalytic converter thefts for our partners across the region, who are trying to do this great work. They're out there every day in vans and other vehicles trying to help individuals come and go, get to the grocery store, get to the library, do whatever they need to do. And they come into their lot in the morning and all of the catalytic converters have been stolen from their vehicles. So unfortunately, when we see these stories come up in the news, they hit our stakeholders, and they cause ripples for our work and make it that much more difficult to try to help individuals who are vulnerable in our community be connected with transportation. So this year we are looking at an increase in that 5310 funding, and we're trying to figure out how to problem solve working with supply chain issues and all the other issues that I've already mentioned to try to, again, increase the fleet for a lot of our mobility partners. Next slide, please. So I think we all know each other at this point. If you ever need to get a hold of me, here's my email address. I feel like I email you all quite a bit, but I do just want to let you know that our staff is back in a hybrid model here at our office. We would welcome you anytime if you want to come and take a tour, or if you are interested in the future of hosting this meeting again in an in-person or hybrid fashion, we can discuss that as well. We are having meetings come back in an in-person fashion at MAG, and we do have certain security measures in place that we will ask individuals to, we will space folks out in rooms, et cetera, and we will continue to provide a hybrid option if your chair and vice chair of this committee decide that that is the route that they would like to go. So with that, I conclude my presentation, Madam Chair, and I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Really appreciate you going over the wide array of things that happen that you and your team work on and manage over. Are there any questions for Kelly?
I mentioned one more thing real fast. I apologize. I should have dedicated a slide to this. We also coordinate the Heat Relief Network, which is launching right now. The application is on our website. We had 260 partners last year across the region to try to make sure that individuals who are either homeless or work outside or just need to come inside to get a cold bottle of water and some air conditioning during our hottest months. It runs from May 1st through September 30th. Come together. We do ask partners to complete the application annually, even if they have done it in the past. So if you have participated, we really encourage you to do that right now. It is up on our MAG website, and I can send the link to the committee. We use those applications to populate a really incredible map of the region that shows the different resources that are available related to heat-related resources. And we do this in partnership with ASU and other community stakeholders to try to build a robust network to help people be able to get inside during those summer temperatures that Anna shared with us previously. Unfortunately, as Anna mentioned, last year we had a really significant increase in the heat-related deaths in Maricopa County. We jumped from 270 to 338, and we know that these deaths are preventable by just better coordination of the resources that are out there. So we would really encourage you to complete that application at your convenience if appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Kelly? Susan.
Thanks, Chair Edwards. Kelly, where does the age-friendly initiative fall? Is that still part of Human Services, or is that a different area?
Thank you, Susan. It is still a part of our work as well. It is on my plate. So I work with Amy on the age-friendly Arizona work. We are looking at a conference in September, and I would be happy to come back to you with more information about that. It should be a great conference. We have lots of projects like that are, I shouldn't say lots, we have a handful of projects like Age-Friendly Arizona that don't specifically nest under our division's primary focus. And so while that work continues, I'm not always sure about how to bring it up and talk about it. So thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate it.
Thanks for that clarification. Obviously our senior population crosses over in homelessness and, disabilities and heat relief and all that kind of stuff. So I'm always, thinking about those intersections.
Thank you. So are we. And we are really focused on trying to have the members of our team communicate more about the different work that they're doing, because we recognize that vulnerable populations are not siloed in one of these programs. Many of our individuals are using services across the programming that we help with.
Mary Lynn, please.
Yes, I was going to ask the question. When you do the point in time count, do you ask age at all? Because we are hearing that 50% of the homeless are 50 years of age and over, and that's the fastest growing population of homelessness.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we do ask age. We do an interview. This was the first year that we have ever done the point in time count from a paperless system. We had one of our divisions here at MAG create an app for volunteers that they use, and we can come back to you with more demographic information if you're interested.
Okay, that would be great. And also the fact of, is this the first time you've been homeless, or is this chronic homelessness?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we do ask in that there are very specific questions that HUD has us ask, and one of the questions is, how long have you been homeless? So we can also come back to you with that information.
Good.
Thank you. Anything else for Kelly? Again, thank you, Kelly, and thank you for the questions and comments, Mary Lynn and Susan. On to agenda number 7. Are there any requests for future agenda items or any other topics of interest for the committee? And it's okay if you're not, if you can't think of those right off the top of your head right now, please at any time in the month, if you think it's something that would be great for us to discuss, or you want to bring something that you have been working on in your jurisdiction or at your agency, please share those with Kelly throughout the month, and she'll bring it to mine and Jason's attention so that we can set up the agenda for what makes sense to everyone else. Finally, here we are at comments from the committee. So this is our time for you to share information and updates. And if there are any actions proposed, we'll put those on in a future meetings agenda. Anyone would like to share? Yes, Mary Lynn, please.
Well, Jacqueline, I was going to ask you to talk about, I think 17 million that the county is putting into, is it homelessness or housing? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yes. So the county has so far invested $30 million into affordable housing. We completed or conducted an RFP process for that, and we've issued our first 3 contracts associated with that $30 million. There's 3 projects that are with that equate to $17 million. One is an $8 million project for a conversion of a hotel to permanent supportive housing, and that is with the AHI, so Arizona Housing Incorporated. That is focused on for those who've experienced homeless. The other two projects that we funded are actually two phases of a larger project, and that is with the developer Gorman. And this is on Centerline in Glendale, and it's a multi-unit rental, so affordable housing for rent for folks. And so these are expected to, I think the permanent supportive housing will come online in probably about a year or so, and the multi-family apartment housing project is slated for early 2024, I believe. And so those are just like I said, those are just the first of the projects because affordable housing agreements and contracts are so detailed and unique per each one of those situations. They'll be coming onto our Board of Supervisors agenda over the next couple of months as well. There's other projects that I can share that have already been, that the contracts aren't finalized yet, so I won't give all the details, but we're doing a number of projects that have, it's rental for actual homes, so acquisition of homes, rehab, and then actual houses, and those are scattered sites throughout the county, and those are able to accommodate larger families rather than just a smaller apartment. Some of the projects do have there's varied levels of what the area median income needs to be. So some units are, they have to be at 30% AMI. Others are, at 50, 60, 80%. Some, I think we have some at 100% AMI. Some have a focus on our senior population. Others have a focus for those who have experienced homelessness. So we have this whole wide variety. And it doesn't just include rental options. We also have home ownership options in this affordable housing. So trying to hit all different places on that housing continuum for individuals. And so a total of 30 million, and likely to add to that as well.
And Jacqueline, is there someone at the county that is a contact person for trying to access some of these rental options or housing options?
So we can get you that. I'll get you that information, Mary Lynn.
Because we get probably 10, 20 calls a week, if not more like 30 to 50 calls a week about individuals whose rent has been increased on a fixed income, and they're about to become homeless because they can't find, affordable options.
So one thing that I can share with you, like all of these options have some time until they come online. Yeah. So it's not going to really serve, your team very well on this end. But kind of two things on that point. If someone contacts 211, 211 can provide information on where they can find out about housing unit, affordable housing units in general. The other thing that I can say is that the county has funded 211 Solari to set up a housing hotline, and there is going to be some very light touch, high level navigation. And in fact, Mary Lynn, because those same calls that you're receiving, we know it on our end as well. And so for the more in touch navigation and kind of virtual case management for housing, and I say like very, very light touch, not what we may think of as coaching and case management, but we have set aside that seniors need to be part of that population. So they call in and they'll be redirected immediately to this virtual case management so that the person on the other end of the phone can walk them through more how they access information and kind of explain how the systems work in more detail. So it's funded. I've been working with Solari, who's the 211 operator, for getting this established. And I think we in the next month or so, the hotline should be up and running. So when it is up and running, I'll make sure I'll send Kelly the information so that you, Marilyn, as well as everyone else here has that and can redirect clients to go through that hotline system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Kelly?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I had the chance to attend the statewide housing conference for the last couple of days. And one of the issues that was brought up multiple times, specifically related to older adults who are on fixed incomes, is the idea of expanding shared housing options and really focusing efforts on basically roommate technology. How can we get individuals who are living on a fixed income and pair them appropriately so they can continue to stay housed? I don't know if Area Agency on Aging is talking about this, or if any of the work at the county with those dollars is also dedicated to this.
We are. I was just going to say, we are looking at just overall that shared housing model and how to make it sustainable just in general. Sorry, Marilyn.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, we tried a shared housing model. And what we found was seniors were okay with having somebody come and move into their home, but they didn't want to move from their home with someone else. So that's going to be the difficult, is to convince someone, I guess, if they're about to become homeless, maybe they'll be more likely to do it. I think Pima Council on Aging is also working. I think they got a little grant and they're working on shared housing also. So we'll see. But we have to approach it from multiple options.
Jason?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. On that same topic, this is not new news, but I know that Esther Aging, Ascend and Chandler and Tempe Community Action, they actually were also, they received a demonstration grant on a shared housing kind of program as well that they're developing. And so that actually might be a future presentation down the road, maybe, kind of in the middle of summer or so, kind of still give them a couple more months because they're still really just beginning to formulate this. But they do have some really fun, they're kind of starting from, the look at this concept using all the best practices and lessons learned from the past and trying to reimagine what that could look like. So that might be something for the future for us to have them present on.
Thank you. All right. More comments from the committee, items to share?
I believe that someone has a new job.
I have no idea what you're talking about. So yes, I am, Madam Chair, I'm happy to share this news if this is okay with you. So in a little bit of a joke, I'm joining the amazing team over at Maricopa County beginning May 2nd as the new Assistant Director of the Senior and Adults with Disabilities Division. And so that's I'm really excited to join the team and to be working with folks such as Jacqueline and Mary Lynn, as well as all of you and beyond. And so my last day at the Valley San Roadway will be on April 29th. And so it's just just an honor to have worked with VSCW, but I'm just really excited for this new opportunity and a new adventure to be working all of you in this new space. And so you'll probably get a lot of calls and emails from me and lots of different aspects in the next month or so. But yeah, so Jacqueline, is there anything else you wanted to share or add? This is a little strange because I think you're going to be my new boss now. So this would be great. So, yeah.
I am so excited. Each of you have, if you've been part of this committee or worked with Jason otherwise, you know how incredible he is. So I am so glad to have him on the team, and he had to go through a pretty robust interview process, but he was really the standout person. I couldn't expect someone else better on the team to work with, the staff here at the county and work in partnership with the Area Agency on Aging.
And I congratulated him earlier, so.
Perfect. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jason. Great pick, Jacqueline.
It's all about surrounding yourself with the best. So it's nothing that I do except make sure I choose some really good people. So yeah, wonderful. So other comments from the committee? Oh, Anna, did you have your hand up there?
Yes, hello. Would it be appropriate for me to make a comment? I didn't know the.
Yeah.
Okay, I know we're past my presentation.
No, please go right ahead.
Well, congrats, Jason. I don't mean to change the subject here. I just wanted to chime in after hearing kind of the conversation in the meeting, kind of connecting in with some of the things I presented earlier. Kelly had mentioned the increase in heat-related deaths. And I also wanted to mention that, this wasn't our study, but there was a study a few years ago in the National Library of Medicine that found that increased vegetative cover could offset projected increases in heat-related mortality for heat waves in 2050 by between 40 and 99% in 3 US metro regions, one of which was Phoenix. So just kind of wanted to highlight that there's some intersections with some of the findings that we talked about earlier. And I think with the homeless population, who of course are spending time outside, I just flipped through as we were sitting here, one of the Maricopa County reports on death, and I saw it was more than 50% of the outdoor heat-related deaths were of people who were homeless at the time. So just wanted to kind of point out that intersection. It might have been obvious from the mortality, morbidity stuff that I talked about, but putting a finer point on it, that there can be kind of a role there if you can target some of these kinds of programs in areas where people are spending time outside. So
thank you, Anna, for sharing that. Anything else for the good of the group? All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time today. If you wouldn't mind sharing with Kelly your thoughts on virtual meeting, both options, in person, that would be really great as we plan for the future. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.